My name is Shawn Holmes. I'm the CTO of Wrapmate. We are a tech startup in the Denver, Colorado area, and we're focused on building the world's first nationwide vehicle customization platform. So because of the startup nature of the biz, we've got some of those startup challenges, and we've come away with some great learnings over the past few years, and I hope to pour some of those into today's presentation, which is 10x tactics for the new engineering org. And as Mira had mentioned, my history is that I came from a software development background, spent 17 years in the biz building web applications across various verticals, and then was given an opportunity to kind of move into management and leadership around about 2014. And so the challenge there was taking what I had learned being a 10x developer and kind of translating that into, well, what does 10x leadership look like? So we're going to talk about a few of those tactics today. I'll share a few tidbits with you all, and then we'll leave it for, we'll open up QA at the end. So let's get started. So really, why are we talking about this? What's the purpose of even wanting to focus in on 10x leadership? Well, priorities and constraints have changed, right? We've seen this with large orgs. Hiring as a form of competition has just resulted in this glut of companies with way too many developers, and now they're laying them off, which is not a great thing. It's kind of reminiscent of the dot-com bust. It was almost like all of these companies like pets.com, et cetera, just rushing to head to IPO and didn't even have sound business plans at the time. And these orgs have kind of lost the focus of what it means to run a successful business, right? So as a result of this changing landscape, we're seeing now that disruptors can't really just throw money at problems, because there isn't a lot of money available to throw it at these problems. And incumbents, these established companies, they're not going to just become more efficient in this new landscape by just willing it into existence. They're going to need to have real tactics at hand to be able to make this become a reality. So what exactly has changed? Well, it's really just been this perfect storm of things that have all kind of come to fruition over the last several years, right? We've seen these large companies, right, have played their hand, their loyalty hand, right? They've kind of made their employee base invest heavily in themselves and make it their identity, only to turn right around and then lay them off without so much as a one-on-one interview. So they've kind of started to build a lot of distrust and grind away some of this, grind into developers this cynicism, which is going to make it challenging to hire, right? So that's going to be something that we face. There are all these competing return to office mandates, right? We're seeing from both sides, aggressive pushes to bring people back into the office, and also, because of that cynicism, that friction, right, with the developers, a resistance to want to return to the office, right? And COVID, I think, was kind of the watershed moment there, where we were all forced, everyone outside of tech was forced to work from home, proved that it could be done, and now suddenly these businesses are forcing these people back, and so it's almost like the jig is up. Right? We know we can do our jobs remotely, so what's going on here? And it's a nuanced problem. It is a problem of remote management is tough. It requires a different skill set, just like it requires two different skill sets to interview for a tech job and then actually do the tech job. So that's a thing that's changed. The crash of crypto, this is something that continues to plague the industry. And now this incoming wave of the death of the metaverse is really souring the investment landscape. So on that previous slide, I just talked about where startups formerly could be growth at all costs and throw money at problems. Well, that money is drying up. Investors are being a lot more conservative in where they gamble, right? And where they put their investment dollars to try to get some kind of a return, right? They want to be a little bit more thoughtful about their risk assessment. And now we have the rise of AI, right? The AI buzzwords are kind of causing combinations of bursts of innovation and also panic. And a lot of the panic, I think, in the media is perhaps misrepresented. There are real issues that will come with AI, but it's not a lot of what is being reported on. There are bigger issues. It's less about Skynet, and it's more about fixing code that will be written by AI. So that's a kind of a very high level assessment of these things. So all of these things that have changed over the last few years have really shifted the landscape for us as engineering leaders to try to figure out, well, how are we supposed to navigate this? Well, how we navigate it is we stay focused on the essentials, right? We need to be sure to establish positive tech-focused cultures that rebuild trust with employees, right? How we do that is we spend time and care with hiring, and we make sure that we have systems in place to support remote work or hybrid work, and where possible, ensure that there is some central location that teams can coalesce at and have team building, and there is a necessity for humans to interact face to face at times, but it's important for us to be transparent about why that is, right? We don't want people to become isolated and worn down in that isolation. So a good phrase that I like to repeat at Wrapmate is, plan in person, execute remotely. So it's a fair trade-off where the broad majority of that work is done remotely because it can be done remotely. So reestablish trust with employees, be transparent about things like return to office mandates, or where possible, eliminate them. Work with employees, right? We have seen now that people can do their jobs from home, so let them, and put the onus on us to support them and figure out what skills and tools we need to be able to manage them effectively from a remote perspective. Which is really that second bullet, right? Learning and developing those skills. So this means spending time researching and may even require additional management training on what changes when you're in a remote situation. And the primary bullet of that is simply, erring on the side of an asynchronous communication style. That culture of, we can ask questions whenever, and we shouldn't expect answers immediately, but we will get answers eventually. And then making sure that that's the kind of the culture that we support, and that loop that we close. So for example, I have a team, my development team, I will ask questions with them often in Slack, but if they don't respond right away, it's not a reflection of suddenly lost trust in them, or they're not doing their job. They're likely focused on a hard problem right now. They're probably coding on something, but they will get back to me when they need to. And developing and supporting that culture is vitally important. Also choosing the right tools for the right job, right? There's been a lot of waste, I think, as well in these last few years, where people have just, because of the excess dollars and spend and hiring, they've kind of just thrown money at a lot of different tools that there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of functionality that is in multiple products, SaaS products, for example, but there hasn't really been a lot of discipline in deciding which tool really should be focused on. So choosing the right tools and making sure that they are the best tools for the right job that you're doing, without wasting too much excess money on duplicity, and taking much greater care in hiring, right? Maintaining the culture that you have is super important. It's vitally important. So if that means slowing down and being a little bit more thoughtful in how you write your job postings, how you interview, what questions you ask, whether or not you are vetting those candidates for code. Do you have a pre-screening process? Are you yourself personally invested in the interviewing, or are you delegating that? I think it's vitally important that if you have an openness in your culture and a growth-focused mentality, it's vitally important that you maintain that. And one wrong hire could certainly send that south. So it's important to put energy into that. And really, finally, the adoption of automation and/or AI to streamline your internal operations is vitally important. We do see now with the rise of AI, a lot of companies are going, hey, we've got Chat GPT for X or for Y or for Z. And these are customer-facing products that really simply rely on Chat GPT, which I don't know necessarily is the best use of that spend, where internal operations could potentially benefit much more greatly from implementations. And it doesn't all have to be AI. There are great automation tools out there. Several sessions earlier, someone had mentioned Zapier. We have used Zapier in the past. We've used Pipedream in the past. These tools are essentials. I think they are a very cost-effective way to implement complex business rules fast. So, I want to talk about some 10x leadership tactics. Here's a few. These are some keys that I think will move your particular org measurably forward if you adopt these. So, number one is to invest and measure your DORA metrics. Right? So these are DevOps metrics that are super important to, they represent an org that is a high performance org. So we're talking about metrics like lead time, deployment frequency, your change failure rate. These kinds of metrics are vital. As an engineering org that falls under the purview of technology, software quality is your North Star. So those DORA metrics are the ones you're going to want to focus on first and foremost. So, and that's just simply a fundamental right there. The 0 to 1 coupled with the 80-20 mentality can provide extraordinary value delivery. So quick little sidebar on this. So 0 to 1, the mentality there is simply, we have a problem and we need a solution. What is that MVP? What is absolutely necessary to get us from nothing to something, rather than spend costly hours, engineering hours, product hours, design hours on a truly polished solution. You'll get there, right? You'll get to a polished solution. That's not what your focus should be when going from 0 to 1. It should be getting out a minimum viable product, the key pieces of functionality that solve a particular problem. So keep asking yourself that, what problem are you solving? And then the 80-20 mentality, which hopefully most, or if not all of the leaders in the summit should be aware of, is that common statistic, right, that we see in nature, right? 80% of the work goes to 20% of the customers, or 80% of the testing goes to 20% of the app. Like, we see these constants continue to come up. And in many cases, when we are going from 0 to 1 to provide a solution, we focus heavily on, well, what are the key pieces, right? If we do 20% of the key pieces of functionality that we're asked to deliver, they will likely be seen and valued by 80% of our customers. So focus in, like, what is that 20%? Do that 20% very, very well. And that will provide you extraordinary value delivery under the constraints I've already been discussing. So that's another key tactic. Take a hard line on SaaS vendors, right? Kind of touched on this in a previous line. Look, if you have any spend right now that's upwards of $1,000 a month on that one particular vendor, that vendor, you can negotiate that cost. And I'm sure that's just like the entry point for many SaaS vendors. So be really thoughtful about that. Don't just take their pricing at face value, get them on the phone, start working with them. You will find that you can negotiate a lot better deals in the long run just by kind of pushing back on that. Stick to the fundamentals, right? This is something that the key leadership team at Wrapmate has always primarily been focused on. And quick call out to Chris, our CEO, on this. He's a serial entrepreneur, has a very grand vision for what we are going to do at Wrapmate, right? Kind of transform how any single person can wrap a vehicle right from the comfort of a home. So he does have that grand entrepreneurial vision, but even he is still hyper focused on the fundamentals, right? Do the numbers work, right? Are we making more than we spend? And that should hold true for all of us. And especially in the engineering org, the fundamentals of the DORA metrics, the fundamentals of 0 to 1, and just getting quality in, the key pieces of quality software development. Do you have testers? Can you build in one step? Do you have a spec? Do you have a bug database? Like these, I'm stating them only to be fair, but these should be common knowledge. Stick to those fundamentals. And then really the final tactic here is to really build a culture in which the business as usual operations of your company automatically contribute to software quality. So for example, we just mentioned in the previous bullet, do you have testers? Do you have acceptance? Well, I fold the org in on that. I support an openness culture where anyone at Wrapmate can bring an issue to us at any time. And we have streamlined tools through Slack and through Linear and through Discourse to kind of quickly convert concerns into bug reports, and then they can be tracked and can be searched on. And by folding in just the day-to-day folks that help keep the lights on at Wrapmate, that operation, just their natural operation of reaching out to us and sending us requests and us giving them that feedback loop to keep a constant line of communication open, because really they're our customer, the internal folks as well. We're contributing to software quality. So look at your culture and look for ways in which just the daily operations of that company can help contribute to your software quality. So in sum, these are just some examples of some 10x leadership tactics we're employing to really kind of push the envelope of how we are efficient and run a successful business in the constraints of this new landscape. So that's the presentation, Murat. Are you still there?
Here I am. I'm here. How are you? So, Shawn, this was very interesting to look at how you transitioned from, coming from development background and transitioning the leadership principles that you put it together. So we're going to look for the questions coming up from the different attendees now. But I would like to ask you, so how do you decide, coming from development background, is like your natural instinct would be probably, I can write this thing, or my team can write this thing, and you jump in there. So how do you balance between, should we write this thing versus, you mentioned SaaS providers, and which ones to take and which ones you really should write this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how you decide when you develop something, buy versus build, really.
Yes, exactly.
It's a great question. So a good engineering leader that comes from a software development background should have their finger on the pulse of what the best tools are out there, what the options are. So you remember earlier on, I mentioned Pipedream. So
yes,
we early on, we started to build a lot of automations on top of Zapier. And I had heard of Pipedream. I had a couple of colleagues that had worked with it. And so it was up to me to kind of commit to spending the amount of my week kind of delving into these tools and understanding them and going, oh, wow, this is available. Didn't realize that this was even a thing. It absolutely is a thing. And cost-wise, functionality-wise, this makes a lot of sense. Like just in assessing Pipedream top to bottom, going, well, look, in order to do in Pipedream or in code what we can do in Pipedream, they're giving us a lot of value based off of how we can very quickly spin up automations and tie them together to our business processes. So you look at that, you have your finger on that pulse, and then you just simply weigh the costs, right? Is it going to be more effective and faster and cheaper to build it here? And is the tech debt that we accrue going to be manageable? Or is it something that is going to scale out of hand very fast, and is it something we're going to have to switch gears on and then pay down? So be thoughtful about that, because whenever you choose any platform, there is always a degree of tech debt that you're going to be assuming with that decision.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good decision maker. I mean, my rule of thumb is usually, is it going to make difference? If it's available out there, am I going to make something that is going to be, a competitive advantage or some kind of advantage to us if you write stuff.
Right.
I'm mostly, if it doesn't, then let's buy it or get it from the open source or whatever needs to be done from. So there's a good question or comment out there about previous speakers. Shirisha as well was mentioning about. So as a CTO, you are a problem solver, not a coder. But the second part of the comment is, do you believe that coding or any of our roles is going to be replaced by AI soon? What's your personal opinion on that?
I've been in the business for 26 years now, and I've seen multiple waves of a rise of a suite of tools that will eliminate the developer. And I have zero confidence that they will eliminate us anytime soon. One thing that AI, as we are seeing right now, for the technology leaders that do have their finger on this pulse, what we are seeing is that AI and things like Chat GPT, they are very, very good at building and producing plausible answers that are totally wrong. And there are verticals where this is lucrative, right? There will be industries that will be decimated as a result. But software development, it's binary, right? Code either compiles or it doesn't. It runs or it doesn't. And even when they refine it to the point where it always runs, every time you ask it to write this code to do a thing, it writes the code and the thing works. It's going to be a very, very long time before the AI tools understand why it was asked for in the first place. And this is what falls on our shoulders as engineering leaders and tech leaders. We are the ones that come to the table and say, this is why this code has to be written. AI won't be doing that anytime soon.
No, I'm in agreement. That's my presentation is like the importance of why, and I do believe that it's very important that AI will be able to do a lot of the mundane stuff, the routines, etc. But AI plus human needed to be able to put why in there and which one is another one. Let me look at it. Hashmat is a comment and a question in there. He's a CTO of a startup accelerator with an entire team of 4 people, and the company needs ERP, to allow innovators, investors, and the team to work together for better innovation for community. Shall I hire a team or outsource it, or any other option that you recommend?
Well, first I would ask exactly what's the need there? Like what specifically around ERP is the need? Is it a specific piece of functionality? Is it for compliance and governance? Like what problem again is it are you trying to solve? And if it turns out to be something that is much larger from a compliance or governance perspective, then I would strongly suggest finding a consultancy, a vendor to try to work with. As an example, when we stood up our CRM initially, we hired a vendor. It was the most cost-effective way to do it. Expertise, they already knew the CRM, they knew what they were doing, they stood it up very quickly. And then it was up to us to kind of learn the system very fast and transition them off. So yeah, it depends on the situation, but I would push a little bit harder on what's exactly being asked by the org writ large. Why is the ERP system absolutely necessary at this point in time? Because yeah, again, you want to get really, really good at this 10x leadership and being very strategic in how you make these spend decisions. Push hard on, is it a key piece of functionality that you're going to get out of this? Maybe that functionality could be derived somewhere from a much cheaper or more stable or a more hungry org that's looking for your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shawn. And Shawn, it's been very insightful, and I love the transition from coming from development background and into leadership and putting these things into very much in the kind of a very clear ways to have to repeat that expertise and the experience you had. And thank you again, and looking forward to talking with you later.
All right. Thanks for having me. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Shawn.